welcome back to episode 7 of Spellstorm Miniatures. My name is Jeremiah.
I'm Dan.
And with us today we have Chad. Chad, say hello to our listeners.
Hello, everybody.
And welcome back. We're excited to have you on.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
So today we're going to be talking about what it takes to run a Warmachine event. And so we think that Chad is going to be very helpful in that conversation for us.
Yeah.
And
it's
so
a subject I am very familiar with.
There we go.
Just a
and
few.
So that's our main topic today. But before we kind of dive into it, we just had Christmas and wanted to know, how was your guys' Christmas?
It was good. It was a nice, relaxing day for me.
Nice.
Excellent. Yeah, got a few presents. Nothing really gaming related, unfortunately. But
Nothing.
at least
more?
board game.
No?
Okay.
Ended up getting a Switch, I guess, was the family gift.
Well, that's cool.
But, you know.
Yeah, that counts, I think.
Right.
I never got a game system for Christmas. I had to buy all mine through the years growing up. I was a very deprived, nerdy child. I had to get all my own stuff myself.
Oh, sadness.
I got some games occasionally, but like the vast majority of like game systems that I ever owned, I always saved like Christmas money and everything like that.
There you go.
And just got it all myself.
Nice. It wasn't like, hey, here's a football. Go play outside.
Hey, I resent that. I actually got that. Actually, I got the same football from the same person 2 years in a row for Christmas. So there's that.
Maybe thought you lost one.
Maybe. We got the Armada expansion for Bryce, and we actually talked a little bit about that in our first episode of Open the Box. And so if anybody wanted to listen to that, but we on Christmas Day we busted it all out. We played a full game of Seven Wonders, and it was pretty glorious.
Nice.
So
yeah, I haven't gotten the chance to play with Armada, but my roommate did pick it up. We've played with some of the other ones. It's been
nice.
A lot of fun.
Big fan. Definitely recommend it.
Okay.
So
cool.
Hey, how about any Warmachine games? You guys play any Warmachine games lately?
Yeah, actually, Chad and I squared off, tried it a couple weeks ago, and I say try because
I mean, we were both making a lot of mistakes because that was a Grail list that I theory crafted. And
so you're running Grail.
Never played the list before. So
Dan, what were you running?
I was running Siege 2 and Gravediggers.
Siege 2 Gravediggers against Grail and...
I'm shocked.
Was Devourer's a host?
It was Devourer's host.
Devourer's host,
Shocking, right?
Right, yeah.
Well, tell us, how did it go?
Circle playing Dev host is real surprising.
Right. Especially right now. It went all right on my side. I hadn't played Signar. I've been on the Minions kick forever. So I was like, I'll bust out some Signar and see how it goes. And then it's like, oh, yeah, that's how these guys work. Oh, yeah, powering up rather than Fury system. And like, oh, yeah, where do I want to position all these dudes again? You know, so
yeah,
it was kind of a rough one, especially when I threw my dog out there way too soon and early, and he
got shot by a blood tracker.
Yeah, like a spear right there. He toughed the first time, I think.
Unfortunately, he made the tough check, but he ended up getting a spear.
Right.
You're running hot with that Grail list right now, aren't you?
I am, yeah. So far, and very diverse matchups too. So my first game was against you, and that was a long grindy game that I ended up winning on scenario, just kind of through attrition. The second game I played against Scar 1. It was Scar 1 Dark Host with double Bane Cav, and I ended up winning that on scenario as well.
Who was running that?
Harry.
Oh, very good.
Yeah,
okay.
Harry was trying.
Hi, Harry.
And then my most recent game was against Harry's son Arthur, actually playing Gearhart double railless, and that was, oh my god, I was very concerned moving into that matchup because the list is not necessarily designed to deal with effectively 3 heavies. It's mostly supposed to be an infantry list, but and he used Gearhart's feat and both raillists to actually kill all of my Ravagers, the Tharn Ravagers plus the Shaman in a single turn. And so I ended up managing to kill both of the raillists on the next turn between ambushing Bloodweavers, a White Mane, my beasts, which is Loki. No, I didn't use the Wild Argus, but between Loki, Scarsfell Griffin, and Grail, I managed to, and I think maybe one of the Death Wolves, I managed to finish them both off, and I ended up winning that on scenario attrition as well.
Okay, so that's 3-0.
Yep.
3 scenario victories.
Yeah, and I haven't played Grail since Mark II.
Well, he was pretty proud of you. He caught me off guard when all of a sudden you were like, I don't know, you were way far across the board, and I was like, okay. Comes charging in. I'm like, oh, sweet, you're going to charge in. I still have some stuff. I'll get you. And then all of a sudden you're like, I step away. I step over here. I, dash
Kill
over
this guy, I sidestep, and then I... and then I sprint 7 inches, and I've popped my feet, and this thing over here kills something, and then Grail walks 3 more inches, and you're like, oh, you're actually like 12 inches away from me now. Like,
whoops.
Bye.
Let me just kill 3 guys and run.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really the way that I designed the list to be, is like, it's a weird list because it's not as spammy. I personally don't like spam lists. I don't like playing them. And so from one of our other locals who used to play Circle a long time ago, Jason Walker was kind of my mentor for Circle for a long time. As I was newer to the game, he had been playing them for a little while, and he moved into the area, and he kind of beat into my skull like balanced lists, being able to do some ranged and some melee, and having flexibility in the game. So the list actually has max blood trackers, max Ravager loadout, and then I've got Death Wolves to basically kind of be the bodyguard for Grail, because they're difficult to remove starting with corpse tokens, and because they're wolf sworn technically, he has tactics for them, so he and they can move through each other as long as they're in his command, and they pretty much always are.
Nice. And they start with the tokens due to the
they
theme,
start
right?
with start with the corpse token, and then of course there's Lord of the Feast, which is just a monster now.
Yes,
and
everyone's favorite model.
Yeah, and if you play Lord with Grail, you get access to Storm Rager, which gives you +2 mat, +2 strength, and +2 armor. And then you can't be CM8 or CR8, so it just makes Lord of the Feast even more resilient once it gets stuck in there. Like, you basically have to devote a heavy to it, or some really elite infantry.
Make it really tough, and then Grievous Wounds just totally rip through.
Exactly. Yeah, POW 15 or POW starting at POW 16 mat 10 is real good.
Yeah,
yeah, that'll take care of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a chance to play at Next Level Gaming in Salem. It's a brand new store, and it just opened up on Lancaster Drive, I think. Ozzy and I went down on Saturday, and we stuck around for 3 rounds. After 3 rounds, both of us were 0-3, and we were facing a drive home, and so I decided just to head out. But I dropped Siphon all 3 rounds. And I did it intentionally because I revised my Siphon list from the 3-man tournament that was on the 3-commander tournament that was on December 8th. And so I revised the list, and my goal was to try to just play through it and see him in different kind of scenarios. So I played Sean in round 1. He was running Mana Wars, and it was I think it was Arcova 1 with a Victor, and I forgot about the immunity. If you don't have immunity cold, standing in the clouds, kind of thing, and so not having a decent mat fixer and stuff like that. So I ended up actually clocking against Sean, and there was just a lot of stuff to chew through, and just took time to do it. And then round 2, I played Alex again from Eugene. And so I think he faced the same list in December, or the first version of it. And so we played each other again, and he was running Scorn, and he had 2 Supreme Guardians in the list, and I was able to take out one of them, which was really helpful, and I was up on scenario against him too, but ultimately I again clocked out. It just takes a lot of rolls against myself to build up the focus on my monstrosities and things like that. And then round 3, I played a guy named Joshua, and he was running the Crix, the statistics. I think they're the ones that have the horn. Yeah, I said it wrong, right?
Ladies with the whips.
Everyone does. Yeah, you're not the only one.
The horns and the whips, right? The 2-inch whips and the 1-inch horns. Yeah. Super fast, and just kind of ran circles around me, and it was a hard game for me because I didn't expect to get what I received. I guess, I knew after deployment that this game was just bad for me, and so he ended up he ended up getting the assassination, though I'm not sure. I question placement on one model, but it's not, we were in the fun bracket. It doesn't matter. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay. So
do you have Chaosy Eliminators in your siphon list?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. So they were great. They were awesome.
Yeah.
They're
a great way to get some of that early.
Except when you forget his ambushing unit and they're too far to the edge.
Whoops.
So otherwise they're awesome.
Yeah.
Get back strike through.
So yeah. So that was one of the revisions that I made was putting in the Chaosies into the siphon list. So
you can use their anatomical precision to power up your monstrosities, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of anatomical precision with the overlords and all that stuff. So yeah. So it's not just them, but
yeah.
And then that was Aaron running his first event down there, right?
Yeah, that was Aaron's first event, and actually it was the first Warmachine event at Next Level Gaming, and it was day 2 of them being a store. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to go down was to support them. Right. So they had Friday Night Magic, which was day 1 of their opening.
Oh,
and then like everyone has, right?
Chad loves magic.
And then
no, it's just that's a very ambitious day 1,
right?
Unless you do a lot of publicity about opening the store, and you really know the magic community, like trying to be successful on opening day and draw an F&M crowd seems very ambitious, but.
I think
I don't know anything about the owner or the history of,
and I don't either. So. I don't either. I just know that they have Wild Things games, which I think gets a lot of foot traffic.
Yeah,
and
they're definitely a big store.
Yeah, and so I think it'll be hard to run a game store in a smaller community like Salem, but it's always nice to have an alternative place to go. So it sounds like he's going to be interested in running some of the games that Wild Things may not be interested in running for.
Yeah.
Like he had a low inventory, for in his store, which is what I'm used to having a higher inventory in some of the stores up here.
Yeah.
But he had like everything for Blood and Plunder, so which is a historical ships and pirates and things like that, and it looks like a fantastic game. I know not a lot of people play it, but it sounds like he's going to be one of he wants to focus on that and wants to focus on other games too, and he wants to bring Warmachine back. And so for our community, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. From my understanding, it's I don't think the Warmachine community down there is struggling necessarily due to like shortage of events. I think it's really just there's a shortage of players, because I know that a couple of the people have just been really busy with work, a lot, or kind of have moved away from the competitive scene over the last couple of years. I know Lucas is not in the area. He's been really busy with work. I know Jeremy Rand is in the Albany area. He's really busy with work.
Yeah.
Aaron, I know, is really busy with work, and Tim Bear is another one. He lives in the Lebanon area, and I know that he's kind of moved away from the game because his work also picks up. And so they had kind of a passing of the old guard a little bit, and there's some newer players that are more kind of into it casually. There's a couple of guys that are coming over to Warmachine from Warhammer 40K, and they kind of just play the game because it's cool. They're different cool minis. It's a different feel, but they're much more casual about it. They're not quite ready for playing in a tournament or anything like that. So it's kind of this, they're in this midpoint where they're trying to refill the ranks with newer players. And I think there's a little bit of a shortage of the veteran players to be there to really push the newer players like there is in our community. We have an extremely active competitive community, and if you want to be even slightly competitive when you come to the game in our community, there's a plethora of people that you can turn to for advice and practice and things like that. And that's one of the things that's really nice about this community is we've got a really active one, and there's a bunch of people with years of like tournament experience that can help coach people. Like Ben moved to the area not that long ago, and like within months was already starting to get into tournaments and stuff like that, and started to do very well. And now he's
running events.
He's running events, and he's one of the better players in the Portland metro area. And it was, I mean, he's only been around for couple of years, maybe two.
Yeah,
2.5
I think he
years or
posted
so.
a little bit ago about and trying to encourage someone else new in the Discord there, and I was like, yeah, I'd only been playing for like 2 years, right? So
Yeah.
I want to echo your thoughts. I feel like we have a really good community, not just in the competitive scene, but just in general. I think we have a really good community, and I like being a part of it. And so hopefully, hopefully Salem, they can, get new players in and experience some of the same kind of, awesomeness that we get. So they had I think 10 players officially show. I think 4 of us were from up here and 1 was from Eugene, and so I think that's 6 local guys. And so that's a great start, I think. So hey, why don't we just kind of get into our main topic since we're talking about events, and we asked Chad to come on to help us to talk about the topic of what it's like to run an event. Chad, can you give us an insight into kind of who you are and what makes you especially equipped to have this conversation with us?
So my name is Chad. I've been a part of the Portland Metro Warmachine community pretty much since it started. I started playing Warmachine around 2008, back in Mark 1. Started with Circle. A buddy of mine that I went to high school with, his brother used to work at Guardian Games back at one of their first locations down in the Portland area over on the east side. Sorry, not the west side. Gave me a demo
on Foster?
Game. No, over off of, they were just one block off of MLK, behind where the Office Depot is.
Yeah, their second
and
location.
Sheridan Grocery. Their second location. Because I forgot the one that they're in is their fourth. Anyways, gave me a demo game. I had never played any miniatures games before, but I really enjoyed it. I think it was just a Signar versus Crix battle box game, but he was playing Asphyxious 1 instead of Denny 1, and so I really fell in love with the game. I picked Circle because giant werewolves are cool, not knowing that it is one of the most difficult factions to play. And have been playing for a really long time. I used to play for a couple of years in Mark II. I was really focusing on trying to become an extremely competitive player, and started moving away from it because I didn't like the person that I was turning into, both at the table and also like away from the table, beating up on myself and getting frustrated and irritated at little things, because Circle is an incredibly difficult faction to play that almost requires a perfect game every single time you come to the table, because they're so fragile and positioning is so key that if you start losing pieces, you can lose them very quickly, and then suddenly you're too far behind to be able to get back into the game, unless your opponent makes a mistake and makes themselves a little too exposed, and you can pull an assassination, which Circle is very good at doing. But a very smart player that understands how to take Circle apart can very easily do it, and if you're not careful, you get yourself shut out of the game, and it's a very tight rope to play, and it's very stressful. And so I started moving away from the competitive community, and started playing a little bit more fun lists, focusing more on like enjoying the game, and around the same time started working with one of our local PGs who's not part of the community anymore, Josh Moore, in running events and helping Lucas Gandy down in the Salem area, like running events and stuff like that. So I kind of moved into it, and then eventually took over that role because the space was available. Josh ended up having a lot of outside life things happening and kind of moved away from the community and running events, and so I kind of stepped up in his place and started doing it because the community needed it. There wasn't anyone else really running events in the Portland metro area, and it's a lot to ask Lucas to run both the Portland scene and the Salem scene, and so I kind of stepped into that role. And being an experienced tournament player, like I kind of had an idea of like how to run events and stuff like that. So
when did the Privateer Press have the Press King, or because you were a Press King or two at one point, weren't you?
Yes, for less than a year.
Less than a year. Okay, less than a year. Okay. Well, how long was that program in existence, and what was that like stepping into that role? And I want to ask about that.
I want to say that they had the program for at least 10 years, because it started shortly after the company came to fruition, because the press gangers were pretty much your bread and butter backbone of growing the community. So press gangers were in a position to go to local game stores, help promote the game, help teach new players, and then also help to run events and things like that. I was actually running a lot of events before I even officially became a press ganger. I submitted my application early one of the years and didn't hear anything. And I think I either got told I was denied or just didn't hear anything and assumed I got denied. And then Lucas ended up talking to James. I can't remember what his name is. He used to be the old quartermaster. He took over for Will Hungerford when Will moved into a different department. James took over, and Lucas was talking to James and at Lock and Load that summer, and he was like, look, man, I'm struggling. Like, I'm running, like, I need another press ganger in the Portland metro area, because right now there isn't anyone. There's me. I'm running 2 communities. I can't do it. I need somebody else. And James's response was, well, we don't have any applications. And he said, yes, you do. Chad Laubacher applied to be a press ganger, like, push his application through. He's been running the events when I haven't been able to do it. And so James ended up, looking back over it again and then approving it. And then I think I was officially a press ganger that summer. Okay. And then it was later that year, at the end of the year, at the beginning of the next year, is when they announced that they were dissolving the press gang. And I was like, I was very frustrated, but at the same time, I understood where they were coming from. It was kind of some legal pressure, not necessarily on them, but on similar situations with volunteers getting reimbursement of some sort. Primarily, it was volunteers at a number of Comic-Cons were not getting basically equal compensation for the amount of work and time that they were putting into it. And it became a legal action, and it happened actually with the judges for Magic the Gathering too. Okay. It became a legal action, and so
I thought a lot of people another game that was also kind of involved.
It started with Comic-Con, and then it happened to Wizards, and a lot of people kind of figured that was most likely part of the reason for the move that Privateer did. A lot of people were very upset by it, but Lucas and I had a discussion, and we were, both said, regardless of whether we're press gangers or not, we're going to keep running events because this community wants it, and somebody has to do it. So we still did it. I went to my first and last press gang invitational, PG invitational, at Lock and Load that year, which was not this past year, but the year before. Okay. That was really cool. It's the Thursday before Lock and Load. Privateer Press did like a small tournament, press gangers only, got access to the store early to buy stuff, and it was the year that Grimkin was getting released.
Did you buy in?
I did not.
Oh.
Because I had placed a very large order with Runeborn.
Oh.
Preemptively. I think I did still end up picking up a couple of things, but I ended up pre-ordering like 2 of the starter boxes through Runeborn because I wanted to support my local store, and I was going to be getting that stuff around the same time anyway. If I would have gone to...
Sure.
It was like a week and a half later or something like that the boxes were like readily available in stores. So, so that was my experience as a press ganger. I still kind of consider myself part of the press gang, even though the press gang technically doesn't exist. We're still out there. There are still people. There's a lot of history.
Yeah.
I've been part of this community for a decade. There's a lot of history.
So one of the events that you run is like I and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the largest event in our area, and that's the I-5 Team Championship event. Yep. And that's been in existence 5 years?
Yes.
5 years. And how did that get started? And tell us what it's like to run an event like that.
There's a lot of history behind that too. So originally it started, the idea of this came from right after the first year that the U.S. was invited to participate in the WTC, which is World Team Championship. America was not always part of it. Beforehand, it was primarily a European thing. America got invited.
Knowledge being dropped here.
America got invited. We got 2 teams. We sent 2 teams over. Little known fact, Danny Modesto was actually one of the people invited to be on one of the very first America teams that got sent over there.
Well, Danny who plays Red?
Yes.
Oh, way to go, Danny.
Yeah.
Okay.
So kind of a local legend there. He went over. I think that was the year that we placed in top 5. I can't remember if we were. I think we were 2nd and 3rd, or like 2nd and 4th, something similar to that. Like first year we placed top 5 or top 10 at least.
Hey.
Pretty great.
In recent years, right?
So yeah, exactly. And while that was going on, a lot of the local guys were like, "Hey, this is a really cool thing." We became extremely aware of it because it was not something that had really ever been talked about because it was primarily a European thing. So a lot of the guys were like, "Yeah, that'd be super cool to do. Like, I bet we could try and figure out something like that." So it started really small. Extremely small, Oregon only pretty much, and we had an extremely huge community at the time, and we actually kind of did it store by store almost, where it was pretty much like the Portland people versus the Salem crew, like Salem and Eugene and stuff like that. And so I think we had 12 teams the first year that we did it. It was either 10 or 12 teams, and they were 4-man teams because we didn't quite have enough to do 5. And I ended up playing on one of the teams. Everyone picked a store captain basically, and the captains picked their teams, and I ended up being on pretty much like the Portland B team basically, and I played Chromec 1 Morvana 2, which is where I developed the Morvana 2 list that I had that started terrorizing the community in the Portland metro Warmachine crowd. A lot of people also started copying this list and playing against it. It was one of my favorite lists.
I like that, and I want to hear more about Morvana too. But you played in the first I-5.
Yep.
Were you also part of organizing it and running it? No. Okay.
I was not part of it.
Okay, so who?
Stephen Kemp, known as Duck, was the PG for the Salem area.
Okay.
He and Josh Moore, who was our PG up in this area, started working on it and organizing it. Duck decided that he wanted to play, and so he handed it over to Josh.
Okay.
Who ended up finishing up organizing it. This was actually played at Borderlands Games down in Salem, and then the next year,
they had the space to host that many teams.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it was only teams of 4, so a little bit smaller.
But still like, a lot.
Yeah. Still around 50 players. Yeah. There may have been less teams. It may have been like 8 or 10 teams, but still, you're talking about like 40 players still. Okay. So we did that. I played in it. The second year, Josh organized it. We actually extended the invitation to the Washington crowd because we started going to some of their tournaments and things like that. So like Seattle, Tri-Cities, Tacoma, those guys, some of those people ended up coming down. This year I did not get picked to be on one of the teams. I was a little bummed out by it because I felt like I had grown a lot as a competitive player during that time.
Well, yeah, and you have a Morvana list that everyone's copying.
Yeah, and and so I ended up making my own team since I didn't get picked for one. So it was myself, JC, Abby, Eli. These were actually 5-man teams, and then Tom, who's been out of the community for a little while. He played Menoth.
Okay.
Menoth and Gators for a while. But I think we did okay. I think we ended up being 2-1. And we played against the winning Washington team the first round and ended up barely losing that game. I'm pretty sure I played Kruger 2, Morvana 2 during that time. This was still in Mark II. And then, one of the Washington teams ended up taking the cup from us.
Oh.
We invite you and you take our toys.
Build the rivalry, right?
Exactly. So, year 3 was the year that Josh had moved away from the community, and he was planning on organizing it, and then wasn't able to do so, and so he came to Lucas and I and told us to go ahead and.
So this is when you kind of step in.
Yeah, this is one of the bigger times.
Okay,
but I had already been running some of the like local tournaments.
Sure,
and stuff like that.
When does the I-5 like become big? Like hosted the convention center or
this year? It was the third year.
So when when
Lucas and I took over,
stepped in. Okay, cool.
We worked closely with Tate down at Haven Games when they were still open, and we got the space at the Oregon Convention Center. We bumped it to 16 teams cap. I think we had 15 teams that year, and got all the supplies, got the boards, got the mats, got the clocks and everything that we needed, all the terrain and everything. Got, I think, more terrain that we needed from what we had readily available in the community, and ran a 15-team tournament at the Oregon Convention Center.
That's amazing.
And it was, you're talking about 90 players, 80 players. I don't remember. 15.
15-5 would be 75.
Right? Yeah, that's right. Sorry, we accounted for 80 players is what we assumed. It's 16 teams, but we got 15 teams.
Okay.
So we had 75 players. We had seven matches or 7 sets of matches going, basically, because one team had a bye, unfortunately. Yeah. This was the first year that the teams from California came up. So Alex Cosma, Greg Giroux, if I butchered your last name, I'm sorry, and a bunch of those guys came up, and we had a return of Washington players. And this was the year that California took the cup from us.
Okay.
Seems if you're the new kids, you get.
What is this? Oregon won, Washington won, California won.
Yep.
All right, I'm keeping track.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so it was great having all those guys. They had a really good time. And then again, creates a rivalry between the states of, California guys got to have a really strong meta in the area. A lot of those guys that were on that winning team are really high competitive level players that played nationally. Alex Cosma was, I think, a player and a coach, or at least a coach for one of the WTC teams a couple of years ago. Very skilled player, very good guy. I met him actually at the first and only Warmachine weekend that I went to the year before the third I-5, and told him about it. He had kind of heard about it a little bit. He was like, "Oh, you're one of the guys that's kind of like behind it." I was like, "Yeah, a little bit, but my buddy Josh that I live with is the primary organizer for it." And then the next year is when Josh handed it to Lucas and I. So I immediately contacted Alex and the California crew. I was like, "Hey, like, this is what's going on. These are the dates that we ended up figuring out." And he got a crew together. They brought 2 teams, 2 or 3, actually it may have been 3 teams, because I think it was 1 team from Northern Cal and like 2 teams from Southern California, or it may have been 1 of each. And then they came up and took the cup. And then the next year we did it at the Oregon Convention Center again. I think we had 14 teams. There was a little bit of a snafu where we had 2 people that we thought were captains that ended up being on the same team. So we had 14 teams that year. No, we had 15 teams again, which is why we didn't have 16. This was the year that Canada came down for the first time, and they had 1 player, Sean Hopkins, from the Washington area. He's from like northern Washington, pretty close to the border. He joined the Canadians who came down. Corey Doyle was on that team, along with a couple of their other guys who I had met at a couple of other tournaments and stuff. They came down and took the cup. I was a little more bitter about that one.
So there's been no repeat victory yet.
Yeah, it's all the new guys get the trophy.
Yeah. So and so this is the year, I think this was the year that I showed up.
Yeah. I think this is the first year that you played.
And not only that,
it was for like 2 months.
And it was the first tournament I've ever played in. Hey, welcome to the
Ron was like, "Welcome to the game, into the frying pan."
Oh yeah, I got it handed to me.
And then this past year was year number 5. We actually moved the convention. We moved the event from the convention center to the DoubleTree Hotel by Lloyd Center, because one of the big issues that we ran into both years at the convention center was no outside food. And the second year that we were there was also the same weekend of KomoriCon at the opposite end of the convention center. And so like none of the restaurants down by us were open, so all my guys had to walk across the convention center to the main area, to the middle area, to go get food and stuff like that. And it was a big setback. It puts a big wrench in the schedule, waiting on people and everything. And so we decided that we wanted to move away from there. We wanted to get to somewhere where we could cater. And Lucas and I had looked at a couple of different venues early in the year. Lucas got, this is like late in the year. It was like shortly after the 4th I-5. We started looking around at a handful of different places. And Lucas got very busy with work and everything. So I ended up organizing the majority of this past year's I-5 by myself. Working with Hans and Ryan over at PGS, because they were going to be sponsoring us again this year for the second year, and we ended up doing it at the DoubleTree, and it worked out pretty well. I feel like I think we did end up with the 16 teams, and then we realized that we didn't have the boards that we needed, despite the fact that I ran into a number of snags the week of the event happening. We still managed to get it all pulled off and everything, because I realized this Saturday that we were setting everything up. This year was actually, we spread it over 2 days. So let me wrap this back a little bit. This year we wanted to do something bigger. We were opening it up to 24 teams, because we had a lot of people asking about being interested. And so we felt like we had enough interest that we could bump it to 24 teams, do it over the course of 2 days, which is why we did it at the hotel venue. And then we ended up getting 16 teams, little less interest. There was a couple of teams that weren't interested in returning, but then we also picked up some extra teams. The people from Bend actually brought 2 teams themselves as opposed to just one, which was really cool to see. And then the morning of, we realized that we didn't have enough boards, because we'd only bought enough boards for 14 team matches. And so we were short about 5 boards. Got it figured out. Got the mats that we needed and everything, but it was that last minute like wrench and everything that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my mind.
I don't think you can run an event without having last minute wrenches.
Yeah,
especially that big of one. I mean, it seemed to go all right, at least from my perspective.
Yeah,
the whole duck on the water thing, right? Yeah. You may be kicking frantically, but on the surface,
everything's calm, everything's fine. So I haven't started thinking about what all I'm gonna do next year. I've got some ideas. I've had a couple of people volunteer to help me organize and some ideas and things like that. So. We'll wait and see. This year's been really crazy for me personally. I had a lot of issues outside of work and stuff like that, and then also just the stress of organizing and executing I-5 by myself. So, and then this year, Canada took it again.
Oh. And again, by U.S. bringing 4 foreigners across the border.
Yeah, and our very own Aaron Allen played on that team, as well as Corey Doyle and some other very skilled players from the Canada area. So,
I think the team tournament format is the most fun, and I think that it's exciting that up here on the West Coast that we have something like that to look forward to every year.
Yeah.
And so whatever you end up doing, I just want to support it and definitely be participating in it. And maybe next year, my own son will participate in with me.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we might get enough people for a couple teams from.
From the Filthy Casuals.
Yeah.
The Filthy Casuals are spreading.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a great rundown. That's a great history of the I-5 team tournament championship. What is it called?
The I-5 Team Championship.
I-5 Team Championship. Thank you.
The name originally came from stores along the I-5 corridor, because it started in Oregon. So it started with stores in the Portland area, which was Red Castle Games, Guardian Games, and then there was what was it? Evolution Games. It was either Evolution or Castle of Games in Eugene, and then there was Borderland Games, and Haven Games was pretty new. This was actually like the very first I-5 was one of the very first times that I ever met Lucas Gandy and Jeremy Rand and Matt Snyder and a bunch of those guys from the Salem area. Because we had gone to like a couple of tournaments there. I think maybe I had encountered them there, but the first I-5 was one of the first years that we really got to know the Salem area and really made them a part of the Portland metro area and just exploded with players.
Nice.
And so that was really awesome. Lucas and I have been good friends ever since then. And Lucas and Jeremy and a bunch of those guys, they're all great guys. I miss them. I'm sorry I don't get to see you guys as much as I wish I could. Unfortunately, adult life sucks.
Adulting, yeah. So at Spellstorm Miniatures, our vision here, we wanted to inspire people to play more. And so we have 2 more questions for you that relate to new players and or getting something new started in an area. Mm-hmm. And so why don't we just ask you to bring it down to the local level.
Yeah.
You know, you got stores that in a random city and in a random country, mm-hmm. and they're running an event, but maybe a listener of ours is listening, and they have never participated in an event before. They've never done a tournament. You know, maybe they're doing Garage Machine or they're playing on the dining room table.
Yeah.
But they've never ventured out. What advice would you give them? How would you encourage them to get out and meet new people and play games in a tournament?
That's an excellent question. I guess if you want to learn more about the game and grow as a player, and become better at the game, eventually you're going to have to start playing against other people. You can't just play with your same group of friends, because you're all only as good as the strongest player in that group of friends. You're only ever as strong. Your community is really only ever as strong as whoever your weakest player is, a lot of times. And you as a player can't improve unless you start playing against people that challenge you. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things that helped spark the Portland metro areas. There started to become some people moving into the area that played Warmachine from different areas, or maybe came out of their garages and introduced slightly new styles, different factions, a flux of different factions, strength of factions, and things like that. And that forces everyone to react. You can do one of two things. You can either adapt and grow, or you can not adapt and get pushed out and, never grow as a player. And everyone brings their own style to the table. Eli and I are both circle players at heart. We're both very skilled players. We both play the faction differently. We see different things that we enjoy, different strategies and things that we try and aim for. And so playing against each of us is a different experience, even if we're playing against Circle. Same things for Kador, Signar, Trollbloods. A lot of those people all bring all sorts of different things, and everyone brings their own style to every faction that they play. So if you want to grow as a player, eventually you're going to have to start playing against other people. If you want to do it casually, totally fine. There's no pressure. If you don't want to play in a tournament, totally fine. It's not for everybody. But if you want to play competitively and you want to learn to play on a clock, I recommend starting small with a clock at some casual games and things like that. The easiest way to do it. The toughest way to do it is just go sign up and go play. Figure it out as you go.
You learn fast, though, I guess.
It does. And, if you want to ease into it, I recommend starting with a clock, playing. There are time guidelines in the Steamroller packet, even for relaxed timers.
And those are free downloads from PP on the website.
Yeah, you can follow those guidelines. And then one of the other good ways to do it, honestly, is if you want to be really quick, put yourself on a turn timer of like 15 minutes and then shorten it as you get faster and faster. And it teaches you to make faster decisions, quicker decisions, notice things better, commit to plans, because that's a big problem that a lot of people have is they get in their head and they get analysis paralysis and they sit there for 20 minutes staring at the table trying to unfold this plan.
Yep.
They start executing the plan, and 5 minutes in they mess something up, or a dice roll doesn't go their way, and then they're like, well, crap, now I have to reanalyze this entire, and then you waste another 10 minutes trying to fix your correction. And playing on a timer, getting used to playing on a clock and playing on a short timer helps you reevaluate and be like, okay, that didn't happen the way I wanted it to. Collect yourself, move on, do something else, look at the table, something different. A lot of times just looking at a different section of the table can help you kind of get past something. If you get really hung up on an attack roll over here where a solo didn't clear a flag, if you move to the other side of the table to do something, sometimes it'll help you kind of clear your mind a little bit. So yeah, if you want to get out of your garage, you got to get out and play other players, start on a clock, and then just find something small to play in if you can. If you can't find something small, hop into whatever it's available. As far as like running an event, if you're concerned about it, you can start small again.
Yeah,
4-man scrambles.
Yeah, that's my next question.
Yeah.
Let me frame it and then
Sure.
and then let you kind of run. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say someone who is listening to this podcast lives in an area where there aren't any events at all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then they kind of have to do, like, how do you run an event is sort of the first fold of that question. But the second fold is how do you then recruit players?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can have an event, and if no one shows, you know, it's a big bummer.
Yeah.
And so, so there's sort of twofold there.
Yeah.
So,
the first step, honestly, I think is figure out if your players want a tournament. If you have a player base that just wants to play casually and nobody wants a tournament, then there's not really any point in taking the other steps to organize something.
that's what's happening in Bend right now. They I think they have a large group of garage machine players, and in fact, I think they literally play in a garage.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't it like a repair garage?
One of the guys owns a business, and that's where they play.
Yeah.
And they're actually hosting their first event this coming February.
Yeah.
And so this is like the perfect time to talk about this topic as it relates to our Bend players,
Yeah.
but other players around the world, you know. Sorry, keep going. I interrupted you.
No, that's fine. It's an interesting point because they're actually doing something ambitious, which is they're starting with a team tournament as one of their first events. But find out if your community wants an event, if they want a tournament. If they do, cool. Find play space for it. If you don't play at a local game store, if you play at home, figure out who's got the biggest garage or the biggest living room or the biggest game room basement or something like that. Figure out where there's space. Talk to the people that have access to that space, and work something out, organize something. The biggest issue is probably finding tabletops, so 4x4 boards, mats to go down on them, and then making sure you've got all the terrain.
Yeah.
Assuming you have all of that stuff, or assuming you have a store that has all of that stuff. Find a space to play, talk to whoever owns it, organize a time where it's going to be beneficial, talk about pricing and prize payout and stuff like that. You can do something small where it's like $5 entry, maybe a couple gift cards to like first, second place, or a couple randoms or something like that. Most of the time, tournaments do $10 or $15, and then it's store credit payout to first, second, third, maybe a random. I encourage people to, and I wanted to start doing this more, is encourage people who enjoy the hobby aspect of the game. Encourage the people that like to play fully painted by offering some sort of a reward, maybe a $5 gift card or something like that to Best Painted Army, or do a random to whoever is playing fully painted that day, because that's the big divide in the community more than just about anything else. Is you have the people who are hobbyists who play the game, and then you have people who play the game who sometimes hobby. There's a big difference, a big divide between those two people, and you want to bring both of them together in order to have a strong community. I think you guys talked about that some on your community building episode a little bit.
Episode 5 with Jason. This is a good topic to talk about, because Dan and I want to run a King of Coins event next quarter, And so these are some of the questions that we've been asking ourselves, because we want to support the community, and and we want to kind of sponsor that event, because we're going to be providing the coins for that event, and so this is a really good line of thinking. You want to add to that, Dan?
No, yeah, exactly. It's been a lot of that toil of, the prize support, because you want to make it fun, and like you said, this is kind of going to be a little bit different, whereas, you can almost kind of casually get into it, and that's, one of the things, like you said, it's sometimes hard. I know when I started, at least, to go like, okay, hey, this is a new game. I'm going to chunk out 8 hours of my, Saturday or my Sunday or more and go play this. Especially if you have a family or something.
Yeah, that's also something really important to let people know in the community, is that playing competitively and playing in a lot of tournaments is a time commitment, and you need to be ready and willing to make that commitment. Right. If you aren't, totally fine. To understand, like I said, tournament play is not for everybody. If you just want to throw dice for like one game, one afternoon, one Saturday or something like that, totally fine, understandable. It is a big time commitment, and not everyone can do it.
Yeah, indeed, exactly. That's why I like the setup. The Masters coming up, and then you ran. It was Champions, right, last year.
Yeah, it was also
Champions.
Was it a Masters? Yeah.
That was another thing that was surprisingly successful. That it started as like a fun idea, and then people were like, "This is awesome." And we've done pretty much one every year, at least, I think.
Yeah. In the same format with the pods and stuff.
Yeah.
Nice.
We've done, I think the original time we did it off of, it was the Iron Gauntlet. And so you could actually play based off of the original Iron Gauntlet rules, which was you could have lists from multiple factions.
Nice. Oh, it's interesting.
So you could have like a Scorn list and a Signar list or something.
No,
I wouldn't, but
that's a lot.
You could have a Scorn and a Khador list.
Yeah.
Or Cephalix and pigs.
Right. Yeah, so
that's very competitive. Cephalix and pigs.
Right, there you go. Arcadia Siphon, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, if you're Adam Bernstein, that's a regular Saturday, right?
Right. Yeah.
So like I said, something like that's a great way. You can just schedule out a game, and you play it.
Yeah.
Not too huge, and it was a great way to kind of get to know other people outside of that. Hey, I'm just going to go, and all 7 of these guys all know each other, and I'm just kind of the new guy. A little bit easier for that. That's why the King of Coins, again, was kind of bringing to that one, was a little bit more casual, too, in the fact that the way it's going to be ran a little bit is you could be playing your buddy on that fun game whenever, and you throw down that challenge, try to get that coin, or you could be in a tournament, you see the guy across the table. Well, you're playing a game already anyway, so why not?
Let's raise the stakes.
Exactly. Make it a little more interesting. So... yeah, that's what I had to add.
No, you said something interesting, and I want to maybe close with this thought, and then we'll wrap up our episode for the day. But you said something about making friends. I was talking with Alex at the Next Level Gaming tournament a couple days ago, and he was saying, he just kind of made a comment, and he was like, I met all my friends through Warmachine, and like that's all my friends now. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I've got friends from high school that I still hang out with from time to time, but a large number of the people that I still see on a regular basis, talk to on a regular basis, and hang out with at the game store are people that I met in the Warmachine community.
Yeah.
I've been to Canada, I've been to Warmachine Weekend, I've been to Las Vegas Open, and I've been to
that's a bucket list
Lock and Load, and I've met tons of different people from all over the place, and it's been great. It's a great experience. It's one reason why, it's one of the main reasons why I'm still part of this community, is all of the friendships that I've made around this game.
That's great. I would broaden it just a little bit, and just to say that all my friends are gamers in some fashion.
Yeah.
Not everyone plays Warmachine, but most all my friends are gamers.
Yeah.
So. Well, why don't we call it a day, I guess, for this section, for this topic, and chances are, Chad, I'd love to have you on in the future to talk about it some more. Maybe when we get some details on the next I-5 and have you come on and plug the event, and because we want to support what's going on in the community. Yeah. That's the point of the podcast. So, speaking of what's going on in the community, on January 6th, Rune and Board is hosting Scramblers, and you mentioned that briefly.
Yes.
One more time, can you tell us what a Scrambler is?
So Scramble is actually a really simple concept. It's a 4-man tournament. single list, single scenario, best of, obviously, one matchup. So it's a mini tournament that's meant to be played very fast. We did this as a way to get like a lot of competitive games in on a small scale. So usually we were doing it at a game store, $5 buy-in, winner takes all. You're basically playing 2 games. You win the first game, you go into the second one. If you lose the first game, you could play the second one if you wanted to, or you could go off and do something else.
Like another scrambler.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're going to be doing, or what we're doing at Rune Board, which is where I work, out in downtown Hillsborough. It's a game store. We're expanding into the space next door. We're going to be doing scrambles on the 6th, which this might not make it out in time for.
That's right. I think this episode is going to drop the day after, but we still want to talk about it because it's a fun format. And I think Oz and I are going to go plan on at least one scrambler, and we'll see how we do, and then maybe stick around for a second.
Right, I'm going to try.
Nice, cool.
Yeah, it's a good way to try and get a competitive game in. And you mentioned briefly, and I didn't think about it before, but actually, organizing and doing the Masters Leagues is actually another really good way to kind of get a tournament feel at a more casual pace. That might be a good starting point if you can organize it.
Agreed.
Get players signed up, put them into brackets. We usually try and do it based off of skill level or experience. If you've got a really even pool of players, do it randomly. Everyone has assigned players each week. Everyone plays the same scenario, just like in a tournament, except you've got a week to meet up with your partner, play your game, and then report it. You can play games out of order, and then eventually it also adds another cool dynamic of, okay, I'm up on this much in scenarios, or I'm winning on, I've won this many games, and we've always done like winner, whoever has the best record in the pod after everyone's played each other, makes it to the winner's bracket, and then they do another tournament on another day. And then if you've got enough players, you do wild cards in there.
I like that. That's great. And we have that in writing on the COG Collective website. You can go to the events page, and you can find the information on, And speaking of, our Masters begins on what date, Dan?
The 14th.
Yep.
So you still have a couple days if you're listening to this.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm going to be in there.
Nice. Dan, you participating?
Yes, I'm signed up. I don't see my name on the list yet, but I'm signed up on the forums at least, so
Very good.
Should be in there.
Yeah. Ozzy and I are him and Han. Probably going to him. Or Ha.
Whichever one means you play.
I think
probably.
I think we should commit.
Yeah. You're right. I think we should commit.
Just like you should commit to something else, Jeremiah.
I like my scorn army that I've been trying to build.
Assembling your scorn.
I am so slow. Hey, I built a cannoneer and a sentry on Thursday.
Awesome.
So I'm happy.
It's a good start.
So I'm slowly getting there.
You need some troops.
The next event on our list is the King of Coins. Dan talked about that earlier. We don't have a date set yet for that, but we're working on it, and we're looking forward to doing that. And then the last event that we want to plug is the 3-man team tournament in Bend, and that's going to be February 9th. And so we want to encourage everyone along the I-5 to make it over the mountain and go support the Bend guys.
Yep.
Oh, very good. So one more thing, I guess. The question is, what are you working on? We introduced a new segment. It's called Finish a Figure. Mm-hmm. And so wanted to know what your figure is and if you finished it. And if not, is it going to be your figure for next time? So, Dan, what are you working on?
Well, personally, I failed. I haven't picked up a paintbrush in like 3 weeks now. It's
I feel
hard.
You there, man.
Right? Yeah. Especially you got Christmas going on. You've got the holidays. You got family. You got the kids. Now school's out. You got so much going on, right? And so, yeah, it's kind of rough there. But my goal is, next couple weeks I'm going to get something because again that Masters is coming up. I want to be assembled, painted. Well, I'm not going to be. I know I'm not going to be all painted, but majority of it painted. Yeah, at least get some assembly done. So probably my brigands. I got to kind of want to get them done. They seem like they'll be easy enough to paint up. Little unit. So
you think that until you start working on a pig model.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I can speak from
done that.
experience. Yeah.
All right, let's just go tabletop quality, so it doesn't have to be perfect on it. Yeah.
There's still more to it than you think.
my last finished figure model was I wanted to do the gun bore, and I did not finish, and so I'm going to keep it as my next painted model. And the reason why I'm not painting Scorn is because I have none of it primed, and so I'm only painting things that are currently primed, which happens to be a bunch of pick stuff.
Yeah.
Which can count as Scorn.
Yeah.
So
it kind of counts. Just get a Taskmaster; it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
And now we need to get you a posse and and a pot, and you'll be.
Oh man. Oh yeah. Okay, Chad, what's on your desk? We'll wrap up with that. What's on your desk?
Too much.
Too much.
I have too much stuff on my desk right now. I've got currently I've got some 40K models and some. I know, blasphemy.
Yeah.
And some Warmachine models that need to get repaired. I need to re-glue Grail to his base. Unfortunately, he popped off. I'm going to have to run a pin through his foot and into the base, and then I got to put Loki's hook back on. But I'm planning on playing that Grail list for the Masters League, and I'm excited to get some more experience with it. It's a really fun list. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I think it catches some people off guard.
Nice.
But I'm excited for that. And eventually I want to get Grail painted up. Most of my circle is actually painted, and so I should finish it off. But also, my blood trackers need to be redone. They're beat up.
Fair.
They're very beat up.
Yeah.
And their color scheme doesn't match with the rest of my army.
Yeah.
So I need to fix it. It bothers me.
Yeah. And this is where Scott will say something about having a gloss finish or a matte finish to protect your model once you get it painted. So. Well, very good. I, for one, I'm thankful for the conversation we had today. We learned a lot about our area and the history of events in our area.
I could talk for hours.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
about
that.
Everything.
And I hope that our listeners, if you're someone who has never played in a tournament, I want to invite you to get out, find a tournament and participate and just do it. You may surprise yourself and you may have more fun than you think. And then if you're living in an area where there aren't a lot of events happening, I want to encourage you to maybe step up and take some leadership in that area, and see about connecting with some other folks who play in your area to play. Any final thoughts?
No, just thank you and appreciate it.
Very good. Yeah. This is Spellstorm Miniatures, and our goal is just to inspire you to play more. Thanks.